Greetings, greetings, greetings. Before you sit down to watch this video today, I want you to get a cup of water, take a deep breath, and clear your thoughts. You must comprehend what this video is going to say. Listen to it very carefully. If necessary, go back and listen to it the second time. Most of my videos, you should do that because I speak to you. And most of you really don't comprehend what I'm telling you. This morning, or earlier yesterday, the Ghanaian so-called peacekeeping force in Lebanon got hit by a missile. Now, the Israeli ambassador called Ghana and told them it was going to happen. Ghana, after it happened, started blowing up. The president started shouting and everybody. International law protect us, this thing, da. How is it that this African man, after seeing the world that he lives in for 50 plus years of his life, cannot see that there's no such thing as international law helping his country or him? This same fool is going to go before the United Nations when they have their day of slavery and talk about what happened to the slaves and how reparations should be given. Out of his mouth is not going to come, we are going to repair those people who, our people, the people whose families are in Ghana now, the real wealthy people, the chiefs, the governors, and him, whose families were among those who sold other Ghanaians into slavery. Nothing about how he planned to compensate the people from the Caribbean, Americas, Europe, of African heritage who were sent into slavery. When we go back to Ghana, we buy a piece of land, and guess what? Other Ghanaians now come and take the land. They find all kinds of imaginative ways to take the land. Steal it from us. Steal your money, every possession that you can think of. That's the ignorance that African people in general have. They don't want to look at the world as it is, even though they participate in it. The president of Kenya sent his people to Haiti to murder Haitians? Did he stop to think about how Haiti got into the position that it's in? I just heard Kagame from Rwanda talking about the pressure and the stress that he's under, people calling him up every day and threatening him. He accepted the position of being president of Rwanda to represent not only his own state, but other Africans wherever they are around the world. He got up and said, I can do the job. And now he's complaining about what happens when the job that he's got to, what kind of stress he's facing when he's got to do the job. I started out talking about Africans in the video because I've spoken about everybody else so far. I've spoken about Africans throughout. I always tied it in together. What Africans is going to gain or lose whenever actions are taken by some other power around the world. And I told you once before that the Arab is only second to the people who call themselves the chosen of God in their evil. But being so weak, you see, in a group, it will come to you in a group and say, if you don't accept this, whatever we say, we're going to kill you. But one against one, especially an African, he will not do it. Silence. In this video, this lady is going to describe how the Arabs are thinking. And the person she talked about here from UAE, he's making a statement or several statements, questions. He's a wealthy Arab. And he was one of the primary movers behind the so-called Abraham Accords, with them allowing Israel to take over all of the land between the Mediterranean, they call it the Nile, and the Euphrates, all the way to coast, up the coast of the Mediterranean, Lebanon, all the way to Iran on the other side, including Saudi Arabia. They thought that Israel was going to allow them to keep their little fiefdoms and their wealth. But they don't know the people. Well, they do know the people because they are the ones who help them take our lineage. The Arabs help and through conversion into the religion of the Arabs, the Africans help. I know my history, my people, my family explained it to me. I had an aunt that raised me, that she sat me down and gave me the talk. Fuller from Benin in Nigeria. The wars that were fought between the Yoruba and Hausa, and all the tribes along Western Africa. Iwe, Ashanti. I know the history now. I know what the Arabs did. That's why I have no respect for Mansa Musa. He was like the rest of the African leaders today. Squandered the wealth of Africa. But this Arab, now that he's lost the power he thought he had, is now crying about what America actually. He didn't come out before the war and says, you know what? We don't want any bases in our land. That's how he's got wealth. Him and most of the imams all across Western Asia. The imams are the leaders of the religious belief. The leaders in the political world and the kings and the princes. Before the British raised them up to their father, King Saud, they didn't have the kind of wealth that they have now. Little chieftains all over the country, just like in Africa. The British raised them up in order to get the oil, put some money in their pockets. And now, what are they doing? I want you to listen to what she has to say. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
8 days, that's all it has taken. 8 days since Operation Epic Fury began. 8 days since the first strikes landed. And in those 8 days, the economic geography of the entire Middle East has been rearranged by force inside the territory of America's closest Arab allies. Allies who, let us be absolutely clear, didn't ask for this war, despite the stories that were leaked subsequently. All publicly have said that they did not want the war. Oman was actively mediating, and the foreign minister expressed his disappointment that the United States didn't give peace a chance despite it being within grasp. It's clear why the GCC economies would want peace. Their economies have already been savaged in these last 8 days. Their reputation for safety and stability lies in tatters. And the war has just begun. Qatar's LNG complex at Ras Laffan, the single largest concentration of natural gas production on the planet, has been struck and production halted. Saudi Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery, the facility that's responsible for over 500,000 barrels a day, was taken offline by a drone. Kuwait's MD refinery hit by debris. Qatar's energy minister has now stated publicly what the models have been showing privately. If Gulf energy exporters shut down production within the coming weeks, not as a political choice, but as an operational necessity, oil will move to $150 per barrel. The UAE's absorbed over 1,000 drones and nearly 200 ballistic missiles. Bahrain's hotels are burning. 70% of all commercial flights across the UAE, Qatar and Bahrain are cancelled. Dubai Airport, the world's busiest airport for international passenger traffic, has been closed for days now. Hormuz traffic, the choke point through which a fifth of the world's oil normally flows, collapsed by 80%. And if Iran decides to hit at the GCC's desalination plants, they will have less than 2 weeks of drinking water. The United States chose to fight a war inside the economic geography of its own allies, and it's assumed that those allies would absorb the cost without recalculating the contract that they have. Now, that assumption is now being tested. Who gave you the authority to drag our region into a war with Iran? Who gave you permission to turn our region into a battlefield? Did you calculate the collateral damage before pulling the trigger? You placed GCC countries at the heart of danger they didn't choose. These questions asked by Haptur are reverberating across the region.
You see, the questions now. They didn't ask this question before the war. They didn't say, like, no. It's not going to happen. You cannot do this. If you plan on doing this, the first round that's fired, you're going to have to move all your bases out. But now, the fear. This is all about fear. The same thing with the Ghanaians. It's about fear. They're talking about the international law now. Fear. If they had stood up and say, hey, Israel shouldn't be doing this in the beginning. If they had raised international law before Israel fired a shot, when they went to Lebanon to help secure what they're calling peace, we are going to Lebanon to be peacekeepers. How many people have died since the Ghanaians went to get Lebanon to secure the peace? But now it's the fear. Didn't take the time to study the people that they call the Jews. No comprehension about who they're dealing with. No comprehension. Same thing with the Arab. The Arab has no comprehension about the European, the reality of. They've lived with them for years. Some of them married the European. And didn't take the time to look at what the European did to the Africans that they enslaved. If they had taken the time to do it, they would have known that their lives don't mean too much. And he would not be asking these questions in fear today. This war, by the time it is over, and when I say over, I don't mean the shock, the shooting. There will be a pause in the shooting, yes. But you're going to be surprised. Those of you who survive are going to be surprised by so many events that are coming. Your imagination right now do not comprehend what is going to happen. If I told you what I know, you will laugh and you will say, can't happen. Your mind is dwelling in the realm of God is going to come to do this. And it's going to happen without God coming. You don't understand what God is. You just heard it. You grew up hearing the word. No comprehension of what it is. I always told you this is a repeat of history. You see what the British did across Kenya and Uganda, Nigeria, Cameroon, the French across much of West Africa, Central, the Belgians in the Congo, the Germans in South Africa, the Dutch in South Africa. You refuse to read and comprehend the nature of the people you're dealing with. And over the last 20 years, you've watched what has happened across the Middle East, and still African people, Arab people, don't comprehend. Now, the Arab thought they were friends. And this will not be allowed to happen to us. They're not going to allow this to happen to us. Now he's scared, fearful. It's happening. And it's not just Iran's doing it, it's the Israelis too. Some of those missiles are falling in his country, not just Iranian missiles. But he's not telling you that. Anyway, the round 2 of this same conflict is about to begin. And when I say about to begin, the bullets might stop being fired at Iran, but the weapon is going to be fired at somebody else.
Saud al-Habtoor is a UAE billionaire, a former diplomat, one of the most connected private figures in Gulf politics. And he published an open letter to Donald Trump that was anything but diplomatic. And he's not alone in expressing this. Al-Habtoor is not some peripheral critic. He is the establishment. When UAE elites start publicly questioning American decision-making in language that is this direct, it is not an individual speaking. It's a signal from within the system. Now, this is a country where the police threatened only this week fines and imprisonment for sharing rumors, false information, or any content that contradicts official announcements or that may cause public panic or threaten public safety, order, or health is prohibited. Habtoor had previously thrown his weight behind Donald Trump in the 2016 election campaign. He had penned at that time an op-ed for a UAE newspaper, The National, in August 2015. It was titled, "Why I'm Backing the Donald's Bid to be President." And he praised Donald Trump as a fearless doer and a successful businessman. He later withdrew support after Donald Trump called for Muslims to be barred from entering the United States. He told the NBC News that he regretted supporting the Republican frontrunner. Now, according to the Financial Times, 3 of the 4 largest Gulf economies, that is Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait, they haven't named which of the 3, but 3 of them have begun a joint internal review to take assets out of the United States and overseas. A source told the FT that they're asking whether the force majeure clauses can be invoked across existing contracts. Now, you may already know that Qatar has already cited force majeure to come out of several LNG contracts that it has existing with India, among other players. Force majeure clauses basically allow suppliers to suspend any contractual obligations they have without penalty when an event beyond their control prevents the delivery. Now, Doha accounts for around 20% of global LNG supply. Now, the 3 countries, we don't know which of the 3 they are, but the 3 countries are thinking of pulling the clause to get out of the sports sponsorships, investment pledges, and maybe even back out of those huge government investment commitments that were made to Donald Trump during his tour to the Middle East last year. The president at that time announced some $3.2 trillion in investments after his trip to the Middle East in May 2025. Now, all of this is under review. And I don't know if any...
You guys understand what's going on? That $3 trillion, right? America, Israel, level Gaza. The Arabs invested in building Ghana into a Las Vegas of the Middle East. Can you imagine that now? They silently stood by while the land was leveled so that they can make money off of it. So that they can make money off of it. Huh. You understand? Do you comprehend what I'm telling you? What I've been telling you for so long?
If you followed the recent Paramount versus Netflix bid for Warner Brothers, but Ellison's Paramount bid is being powered by $24 billion coming from sovereign wealth funds in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. Maybe Netflix will win that deal after all. According to the Financial Times, over $2 trillion in US-held assets are potentially at risk. Now, the mainstream read on this is that the Gulf states are flexing leverage over Washington. It's a warning shot, a threat. But they don't expect it to change American behavior. And to some extent, they would be right. After all, as they were issuing those threats, Trump on Friday posted on Truth Social that he was looking for a total unconditional surrender from the Iranians. And he's going to continue until that point. However, there is a structural reality that most of the analysis is missing entirely. The United States is now an energy exporter. That's not a slogan. That's an operative fact that governs everything else in this story. American LNG right now is selling at a premium into the markets. European markets, Asian markets, all that are searching desperately for non-Gulf supply. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is not necessarily a problem for the Trump administration. And you can even argue that from the American vantage point, it's a great outcome in many ways. The Gulf states are not partners whose trade flows need protecting. In gas, they're actually competitors who've been structurally sidelined. The United
This lady is telling a story that it took me from the beginning of the war in Ukraine, and all the videos that I dealt with this subject, to go back and look at them step by step, step by step. Tell you this war is going to come. And some of you might see the Middle East as not part of Africa. So let me tell you, the war is coming to Africa too. When this is over, Turkey and Africa. Anyway, let me stop here. I'm going to have to continue this in part 2. Peace.